I'm 82 years old, and I am sitting in a house that is far too large for one person. I spent 42 years making sure I could afford a place like this, with the high ceilings and the view of the valley. Now that I'm here, I realize I've spent my entire life building a very expensive monument to my own absence. There is a specific kind of silence that lives in a house when you've driven everyone else out of it. It's not a peaceful silence. It's heavy. It feels like a debt that I can't ever pay back. I'm telling you this because I don't have much time left to be dishonest. When you get to my age, the lies you told yourself for decades start to peel away like old wallpaper. You're left looking at the bare, ugly walls of the choices you made. For most of my life, I thought I was doing the right thing. I truly believed that. I thought that being a provider was the same thing as being a father. I thought that success was a shield that would protect my family from the world. But shields are heavy, and if you spend all your time holding one up, you never actually get to hold the people you're supposed to be protecting. I remember the early days. I was 30, maybe 31. I had this hunger in me. It wasn't even about the money at first, though the money was the scoreboard. It was about being someone. I remember leaving the house before the sun came up. I'd look at my son, David, asleep in his crib. I'd tell myself, I'm doing this for him. I'd say it under my breath like a prayer. I'd work 12 hours, then 14. I'd come home and the house would be dark. My wife, Martha, would be asleep, or she'd be sitting in the kitchen with a lukewarm plate of food she'd saved for me. She'd ask me how my day was. I'd tell her I was tired. I was always so tired. I used my exhaustion as a badge of honor. I thought it proved how much I loved them. If you're working that hard, you don't have to deal with the messy parts of life. You don't have to hear about the plumbing leaking, or the fact that your daughter is struggling in math. You just write a check. You solve it from a distance. I felt like a king, because I was providing. But kings are usually lonely people. I remember the first time I missed a birthday. It was my daughter Sarah's 7th. There was a merger, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, they called it. My boss told me I was the only one who could close the deal. I believed him. I wanted to be the only one. I called Martha from a hotel room in Chicago. I told her I'd make it up to Sarah. I told her I'd buy her that expensive dollhouse she wanted, the one with the real working lights. Sarah got the dollhouse. I saw a picture of her opening it. She was smiling, but she wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking past it, probably wondering when the door would open and I'd walk in. I didn't walk in for another 3 days. By then, the excitement was gone. The dollhouse was just another object in her room. I did that for 42 years. I chased the next title, the next bonus, the next mountain. I thought that once I reached the top, I could finally sit down and be a husband. I could finally be a father. The problem with the top of the mountain is that there's no shade, and the air is very thin. The breaking point didn't happen with a scream or a big fight. It happened on a Tuesday morning in a boardroom. I was 64. I was the senior vice president. I was in the middle of a presentation about quarterly growth. My heart did this strange fluttering thing, like a bird trapped in a cage. I sat down. I remember the faces of the young men around the table. They looked at me with a mix of concern and something else. It was calculation. They were already wondering who would take my office if I dropped dead right there on the mahogany table. I went to the hospital. It wasn't a massive heart attack, just a warning shot, the doctor said. I stayed in that hospital bed for 4 days. Do you know who called me? The CEO called. He asked where the files for the Henderson account were. 3 of my clients called. They wanted to know if the unfortunate delay would affect their closing dates. My children didn't call. Not at first. Martha had called them, of course. But they didn't rush to the airport. They didn't cancel their meetings. Why would they? I had taught them for 30 years that work comes first. I had shown them, by my own example, that a crisis at the office is more important than a crisis at home. I had raised them to be just like me. And now I was lying in a sterile room, realizing that I had succeeded in the worst possible way. When Sarah finally did call, she sounded polite. That was the word that broke me. She was polite, like she was talking to a distant uncle or a business associate. I'm glad you're okay, Dad, she said. We'll try to come down next month if the kids' soccer schedule allows it. Next month. I realized then that I wasn't a part of their schedule. I was a footnote. I was the person who sent the checks for tuition and the wire transfers for down payments. I was a bank account with a pulse. I retired a year later. I thought that would fix it. I thought I'd just show up and say, okay, I'm here now. Let's be a family. But you can't just walk back into a room you left 20 years ago and expect your chair to still be there. People fill the gaps you leave. They have to. To survive the disappointment, they build a life where you don't matter. Martha and I, we didn't know how to talk to each other. For decades, our only shared language was the kids and the house and my career. Without the career, we were just 2 strangers sharing a kitchen. She had her book clubs. She had her friends. She had a whole world that she'd built to keep from being lonely while I was at the office. I'd follow her around the house, trying to find something to do. I'd try to help with the grocery shopping, but I didn't know what kind of milk we drank. I didn't know where she kept the extra light bulbs. I had spent 42 years managing hundreds of people, and I couldn't even manage to be a helpful husband in my own home. The lie I told myself was that I was doing it for them, but the truth was, I was doing it for the ego. I liked the way people looked at me when I walked into a room. I liked the power. The office is a drug. It makes you feel important. It makes you feel like you're indispensable. But 3 weeks after I retired, they had already moved someone else into my office. They repainted the walls. They changed the nameplate. My 42 years of indispensable work were erased in a single weekend. The company didn't miss me, but my family. They had missed me years ago, and they had eventually stopped missing me. That is the part that keeps me awake at night. I see young men now in their 30s staring at their phones while their children play at the park. I see them taking work calls at dinner. I want to go up to them and grab them by the shoulders. I want to tell them, the man you're talking to on that phone doesn't care about you. He will replace you in a heartbeat. But the little girl sitting across from you, she only has one father, and you're failing her. But I don't say anything. I just sit on my bench and I watch. Because I know that they wouldn't listen. I wouldn't have listened. I would have thought, that old man just didn't have my drive. He didn't understand what it takes to win. I won. I have the bank balance to prove it. I have the luxury car in the garage that I only drive to the doctor's office. I have the success awards in a box in the basement. And I would trade every single cent of it to go back to 1988 and spend one Saturday afternoon just sitting on the floor, playing with blocks, and actually being there. Not thinking about the Monday morning meeting, not checking my watch, just being. I missed the way my son's voice changed when he went through puberty. I missed the look on my wife's face when she realized she didn't love me the same way anymore. I missed the small, quiet moments that actually make a life. People talk about quality time. It's a phrase made up by guilty people. There is no such thing as quality time. There is only time, and you either give it or you don't. You can't condense 10 years of absence into a 2-week vacation in Hawaii. It doesn't work that way. The heart doesn't keep track of the price of the trip. It keeps track of the consistency of the presence. What can't be fixed? The silence between me and David can't be fixed. We talk, but it's thin. We talk about the weather. We talk about the stock market. We never talk about the time he cried, because I wasn't there for his championship game. He's 45 now. He's moved past it. He's fine. But fine is a terrible thing to be with your father. My wife passed away 4 years ago. That's something else that can't be fixed. The last few years of her life, I tried. I really did. I took her on cruises. I bought her jewelry. I sat with her in the garden. But sometimes I'd see her looking at me, and I could tell she was remembering the man who wasn't there when the kids were sick, or when her mother died, or when she was just plain lonely in the middle of the afternoon. I was trying to make up for 40 years in 4 years. You can't do the math on that. The numbers don't add up. I'm 82, and I'm just now learning how to be a person. I spend my days in the garden. I grow tomatoes. They're temperamental, and they don't care about my resume. They only care if I show up every day and give them water. It's a strange thing to finally find peace in the dirt when you spent your life trying to reach the clouds. I call my grandkids. I don't ask about their grades. I don't ask about their potential. I just ask them what they saw today that made them laugh. I'm trying to be a different kind of footnote, a softer one. I have a question for you, and I want you to be honest, because you don't have to tell me the answer. You only have to tell yourself. If you disappeared tomorrow, who would truly have a hole in their life? Not the office. They'll have your job posting up before your obituary is printed. Not your clients. They'll find someone else to solve their problems. I'm talking about the people who sit at your table, the people who know the way you take your coffee. Are you building a life with them? Or are you just funding a life for them? There is a massive difference. I spent 42 years chasing success. I caught it. I held it in my hands, and I found out it was hollow. By the time I realized the cost, the bill had already been paid, and I was the one who signed the check with my own life. Don't wait until you're 82 to look at the walls. Look at them now. Look at the people in your house. They are the only thing that is real. Everything else is just smoke and mirrors. I'm 82 years old, and I'm finally telling the truth. I hope you hear it before the house gets as quiet as mine. If this stayed with you, maybe share it with someone who's still running. I don't have many years left, but I still have a few things to say.